I would like to hand over now to Alison, who's going to kick off sharing her story. And I would just say a couple of things, which is that she studied biomedical sciences and then catapulted herself into environmental education. She obviously had a moment of change there, which she might tell us about. And I know her because we work together on CLS, and she runs the Eco Schools programme for us. And she's doing really brilliant things, I think, in terms of inspiring a whole load of eco warriors in schools, primary schools and secondary schools alike, as well as supporting the teachers there. So thank you very much, Alison.
Thank you. Hi, so it's really lovely to be here. Candida invited us to, or she invited some of us to come and speak. She said she wanted normal people to share their experiences of how they became interested in sustainability or climate change. So first of all, I was really chuffed to be considered a normal person. That's really nice. And secondly, then I agreed to do this, and then I thought, oh my gosh, I'm like the worst person at the moment to be talking about living a sustainable lifestyle, because I've just moved to a house which some of you will have heard about, which has an EPC rating of F, and I'm pretty sure it's the coldest place, or it's felt like the coldest place in Dorset. So we've at work and with some of my CLS colleagues, we've been doing a transition together group, which has been brilliant. And you talk a lot about reducing, turning the heating down by 1 degree or 2 degrees and just economising. And I go back to my house and kind of do everything I can, put every appliance on that I possibly can to get the temperature just to go above 10, and so that my nose stops being freezing cold. So I thought, oh gosh, I might not be the best example of a carbon-free lifestyle at the moment, but I'm working on it. I was trying to think about whether I had a light bulb moment or not that converted me to thinking about sustainability, and I don't think I did. I think, and it might have been the same for you, I think I just had a slow inculcation through childhood and adulthood. I think I was just slowly influenced. But if I was to put my finger on one thing that started to make me environmentally conscious as far back as I can remember, it would be Blue Peter. It was my favourite TV programme when I was younger, and they often did stuff about rainforests, and then they would do expeditions across oceans, and they would look at marine wildlife, and then they'd go into the Blue Peter garden and they'd do all these things, and I just thought it was fantastic. So I think probably that was that was what made me think that there's a big wide world out there that's really beautiful and amazing and should be looked after. I had that Blue Peter Green book, and I loved it. And then I really remember quite distinctly the Earth Summit in 1992, and I think I was 10. And I think because of this sort of background of, being interested and passionate about the environment, I remember thinking, and again, it was covered, I don't know if it was just what I was watching or if it was sort of universal, but there was a lot of coverage on TV, and I remember thinking, God, this is so exciting that world leaders are coming together to talk about this thing, which, I think, and I'm only 10, but I think is really important. It was just really inspiring. It really had an impact on me, I think, back then. It was the one way that you could see, well, we had the Gulf War on the one hand and Russia not behaving. It seemed to be a really lovely example of people working together. So it was exciting, it was inspiring. I can't really say that I went away and did anything about it, age 10, but it definitely stayed in my head. I went off to university. What's the next slide? Too soon. I went away to university. I did biological science for a little while. Bits of it were good. We did, I learned about climate science, atmospheric chemistry. I think when you learn about that stuff in a science department in a university, obviously you'll go into the facts about, the mechanics of sort of the atmospheric composition and how it's changed. And, you know, obviously you're encouraged to be investigative and to really interpret and analyse and look at patterns. And I think because that's the way I've learnt about climate science, I've never felt any, you know, I've always accepted that the climate is changing the way that scientists say. And so it's funny to me that people are still debating it. But, you know, that's a question of our communication. So on one level, university was great. I learned some of that stuff. I did a couple of years of biosciences, and then I realised that I just really, really hate test tubes. And like, I shouldn't be left in a lab. I also had this slightly nagging feeling from somewhere, and I think I blame Blue Peter again, that while we were looking at genetic engineering and how we can manipulate species to do certain things, and it's all really interesting, a bit of me was thinking, but I'm sure we just can't keep on living the way that we're living at the moment. You go to a shopping centre and go, God, there's just so much stuff, this can't be right, this can't be something that's sustainable for the whole world in the long run. So after too many microscope disasters and a bit too much questioning, I quit that course. And while I was thinking about what to do, I went back home, and my grandma invited me to go and do an evening course in the village where she works on environmental studies. And like, of all the things I never expected to happen, an evening course in a tiny little village in Cumbria with an 82-year-old lady and some other pensioners, it was probably the thing that had the biggest impact on my future life. So we did weekly courses, we looked at the extent of the environmental problem, you know, water reserves, food supplies, overfishing, just every angle, habitat loss, pollution, every angle of sort of environmental destruction, and then of course climate change. And our tutor recommended that we read this book, and I think this was this was the moment that the penny dropped. It's called How We Can Save the Planet by Maya Hillman. And it was the thing, you know, I'd gone through my life thinking, yes, we should probably look after the oceans, we should probably look after the rainforests, and then thinking, oh yeah, it's climate science, yep, I can see that the carbon dioxide is definitely going up and the temperature's probably going to follow it, and I can see that that's going to have these impacts. But this is the one that brought it home to me. I think the most striking thing about this book is he talks about, you know, the trends in sort of Western society and what's happened with consumption and the way we eat and the way we travel and, you know, all the things you'll be familiar with. And he really advocates carbon rationing as his sort of what he sees as the most equitable solution to you know, limiting carbon concentrations, and so he kind of has a sort of structure that he thinks we should live by if we want to limit carbon dioxide to 450 parts per million, and then gives each human being a carbon budget. And it was the bit where you work through a carbon budget for yourself under this 450 parts per million cap, and realise that what your life would be like that you'd have to reduce your carbon to about 30% of what it currently is, and then how your life would look and feel different. That just brought it home to me, the immediacy of it and the necessity. And suddenly I was just so aware of everything, the moment everything you turn on, even getting in the car with my grandma and then driving to these environmental studies classes, I started thinking, oh my gosh, this is it. So that was the thing that did it for me. The other thing I took from that book is just that we have to do it. I think my main reason now for wanting to act on climate change is not to do with so much my lifestyle, but the justice element of it. You know, what the West has been responsible for a lot of carbon emissions, the developing world, the people who may well have to deal with it. So it's the justice and it's the effect it would have on human populations that makes me think that, you know, from a moral perspective, we can't let that happen, or we should do the best we can to lessen the effects of that. And then just finally, actually, the thing that made me want to work in this kind of field was that I think how we deal with climate change is actually an opportunity to some extent for us to assess our values and to find ways of building better communities. And that's the reason why it's not doom and gloom. And I just found this, which I love. Actually, it's an opportunity to have stronger communities. You know, it's an opportunity to address our values. It's an opportunity to look at materialism and whether there might be alternatives to it that are actually more rewarding for us and less destructive for the planet. So that's kind of, you know, why I want to be here, and that's what I hope to do in my job. As Candida said, I'm working with eco schools in West Dorset. A quick calculation at the start of this school year, I realised with a teacher that the children who go into school this year will be leaving sixth form in 2027. And then if you just think to yourself what a different world that might be, we'll be 3 years off huge emissions reduction targets. There won't be much landfill space. The sea level may well also already have risen considerably. We don't know what the weather conditions are. So I think the important thing for me actually at the moment is to help prepare children who are in school now for a future that might be different in ways that at the moment, you know, we can't even say what they are. But educating them the way we've been educated isn't going to work. And then funnily enough, I've kind of come full circle because I'm working with the Eco Schools programme now, which was a direct outcome of the Foundation for Environmental Education, which was sort of set in motion by the education goals from the Rio Earth Summit in 1992. So that's where I wanted to leave it. But if you want to talk about schools, if you've got any experience, if you can tell me what I should be doing in schools, I'd be more than happy to talk to you afterwards. Thank you.